so much. Wow. I didn't think I was going to have to follow Ken Ramirez. That's just not fair. That's like you just had this luscious Thanksgiving dinner and I come in with the coffee pot. But I have a story and I want to share it with you. And I hope you'll excuse my self-indulgence. I have a real purpose for personalizing this and giving you my strange journey to where I am today. And it's so gratifying that so much of my story overlaps with a lot of the stuff that I've heard in these other amazing presentations from everybody here. I knew that our company was involved with NAIA because Tom Albert is a very good friend of mine, and he's the Vice President of Public Relations, right? And a lot of you know him. He's on your board. Great guy. But I didn't know who you were, and I really didn't know. I do just stay down in Central Florida or travel to our traveling units. I stay very self-involved. So I really did not have a clue. What was NAIA? Last year, one of my duties is testifying in these different municipalities that are literally trying to put us out of business. And last year in Boston, Charlotte McGowan was there. I didn't know Charlotte, but boy, I do now. She's so shy, isn't she? We need to kind of... But Boston, the tactic, they tried to just ban training elephants because it's very distasteful to many people, elephants, animals in entertainment. I get that, and my stand is if you don't enjoy it, don't go see it. But I want to fill some of you in on why I think that it's a beautiful aspect of training. It's just one of the things that we do. It's the tip of the iceberg, but it's certainly what we're the most known for. So let me take you back to the courthouse in Boston. Formidable setting. All the city council members were up on the dais, and the activists went before us. And it's getting worse all the time. It's an escalating and very focused campaign. And every year it gets to me worse because I get older every year, and the people that they're talking about have been my family for almost 40 years, and it's been my life for almost 40 years. So how do you not take that personally? And also, we do make a lot of mistakes, and I don't want to apologize for that. I want to own that and make it better. I want to be part of making that better. But in the courthouse, some of the stuff that went on before us involved holding up an ancient ankus and saying, this is what we use, and that kind of stuff. But there was a class of kids from a civics class of kids, high school kids, I think, maybe early high school. And they were one of the members of the civics class was the daughter of one of the activist people. And of course, this mom was very proud. I'm proud of my kid too. But they sat and listened through the activist testimony, and then they testified. And it was very heart-wrenching, you know, these kids, and it hurts them to see elephants abused. It hurts them to see elephants tethered, and we're just sitting there getting sick because we're thinking, listen to us first, okay? Then make your decision. But check this out. When they got done testifying and their side got done, they got up and left. And we were just sitting there like, what the heck? That's not what we said, but I can't tell you what we said. Charlotte testified next. And again, not knowing her, I didn't really know if she was going to go, you know, put an exclamation point to what they said. But what she said was just incredible. We almost went to our feet, but it was, again, this very formal setting. She said, I just want to go on the record to let you guys know that I think that's reprehensible. That's a civics class, and they got up and left after one half of the testimony. They took a day off from school and came here and listened to one side of the story, and she went on, and I sent her an email afterwards. I said, you are my hero. Thank you for saying that. It was brilliant. So, Charlotte, thank you. Thank you so much. Some of the slides and this is just a slideshow. Again, it's going to come off like, oh God, family movies. But boy, what a trip I've been on and am still on. And I want to share this with you because I really want to deliver into your laps, into your minds, and into your hearts what this whole deal is like. We are a very tribal group, this circus thing. And we've only learned in the last few years that we've got to be transparent because some of the misunderstanding is our fault. And I'd like to dispel that. And I am going to let you fire away at me afterwards because there's a lot of stuff out there that we have to own, and I want to explain it to you if you want me to, or if not, maybe this strange tale will explain some of it to you. Let me take a breath. First of all, the bottom line here that didn't come up says the greatest animals on earth, and I do believe that. We have a lot in common here, all of us. I think our lives are centered around this animal-human bond, right? It's not a job, it's not a hobby, it's our lives. And Another thing we have in common is that we're all being attacked by this same very focused, misinformed group. And another thing we have in common is that none of us in this room, when we were 10 years old, let's say, imagined that we would grow up to run away and join the circus, train bears and dogs, and work with elephants. Can't say train them, but work with them to this day. But I did. And so bear with me. I want to tell you this story because it's who knew? Certainly not my parents. So I joined Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Clown College as a senior at NYU. That's an expensive education. I didn't go there to join the circus. I went there because I was working with troubled kids that just couldn't tune into school. I was an educational theater major, and I thought, wow, clowns, that works, right? Great gimmick. The first day I got there was this day. And Zina, that elephant, got there that day too. This was before the CITES treaty that came in response to the Endangered Species Act. And she came over from Europe. They can't do that anymore. Can't bring any endangered animals into this country from their native country. So I didn't realize at this point that clowns in the circus are disposable. They're like big performers, you know, bring in another clown, and women clowns particularly, very weird thing. But at this point, I didn't know I was going to join. They just said, anybody want to ride this elephant? We all went out to watch them unload this group of 5 elephants, right? Would anybody want to ride the elephant? You bet. Hell yeah is what I said. I did. Because I've ridden horses for years, so I thought, oh, you know, I can do this. That was one of the most thrilling moments of my life. And despite the very unflattering posterior shot of me, I cherish this photograph because I remember the emotion to this day. At the end of this 8-week course, and I knew by the second week, by the way, of Clown College, I was going. I was going this way in my life. I checked this out, and I went, wow, that way, and it's never been the same. My boyfriend at the time had just finished his first semester of senior year also. He said, if you're going, I'm going. So, ta-da, I became a clown. I have never felt so glamorous, so confident, so fulfilled in my life. And Mike just jobbed up with the Bear Act. The first circus that Mike saw, he was in as a groom, totally invisible. And as a clown, you're pretty invisible too, fortunately, because boy, did I make mistakes. So I begged, please let me be on the elephants, please, please, please. So finally I don't know whether it was just to see something really funny happen, or because I'm built kind of funny, and when I fell off the elephant, it was really dramatic. Or just to shut me up because I whine. They finally put me on the elephant. In truth, you know, you think if you've ridden horses, it's an easy transition, but you're on the top of a mountain. They only go like 25 miles an hour, but when you're sitting on the top of a mountain that doesn't have a neck in front of you and you don't have reins, the guy on the ground controls it. They tell you very straight out, don't say a word to this elephant. Just get up there, shut your mouth, and smile. Okay. So I did that. And you go down the track, and the elephant takes a left turn, and your body is still going forward. And you find out only weeks later, the harder you hold on, the more you bounce. You just have to learn to do that. Just put your arms up there and go, oh my God, I can't believe I'm doing this. So I got very, very good at it, only because I was determined to, and because I did. For 2 weeks, when the elephant in the act did a headstand, I fell off. I drew a bigger crowd every day. And then these big old long legs would start shaking, and I had to run over and get back up on the elephant. It was horrible, but I was determined to do it. And again, I'm glad I was a clown to do this, because my whole career was not a clown. I was only actually a clown with Ringling for 2 years, but 2 very rich years. And I rode every elephant in the herd, and just like horses, they're all entirely different, which I thought was really cool. So I still demonstrate to our students today riding. I'm 60 years old. I have about as much business being up on the top of an elephant as I do flying a helicopter, but I'm shameless, so. Anyway, the animal bond. I couldn't believe that I fell into an environment where you spent all day and all night with the animals. There's no break. There's no getting away from it, and who wants to? And we all ended up hanging out in each department. I loved the ponies. I loved watching every pony get scrubbed every day. Every hoof gets cleaned, polished every day. This is the part about animals and entertainment that I think is misunderstood. The animals are so indulged, they have to be. So are a lot of zoo animals, as you just saw. And also, again, the training that goes into these animals makes this relationship possible, and it makes the animals' lives so much richer. The enrichment of the different species that are thrown together, just like the different people, Polish, Hungarian, Spanish, French, all of us lived together in tiny little places. My room was 4 feet by 6 feet. I'm almost 4 feet by 6 feet. That was my room in the train. You stand in the hallway, you pull a zipper down so that you can stand out there in your skivvies, and you pull the bed down, and the bed is the entire room. Amazing. But I never felt deprived. The world, the environment was so rich. I never felt constrained. And so again, when I hear this about our animals being kept in small places, I realize people don't know what they're talking about. Sometimes they are. Yes, they're transported in the circus train. Yes, they're tethered. It's like putting a seatbelt on for a person. It's a safety measure. Plus, the animals are so secure and used to that, it's training. It's training that makes this life possible and rich for the animals. I don't know if that shows up. Some of these slides, as I said, are very old. When I put this presentation together for you guys, I decided I wanted to tell my story. I had to go out to my barn and dig stuff up I haven't looked at in almost 40 years. But it's 2 camels, and then there's ponies right there that they're looking at. And these guys all work together, but when you see the relationships that evolve from the close proximity, it's magic. And I don't know that it happens in many places, because these animals are all worked, free contact. And when Ken said that, I don't know if all of you know what that means, but the handler is right next to the animal. We also have protected contact, which you saw like the elephant where she put her ear out for a blood draw. That's protected contact where the animal is on the other side of a barrier. All the animals in the circus are free contact. It's an amazing environment. So, Gunther Gable-Williams, if you're a circus fan, you surely know who he is, right? And he actually, Irvin Feld, who owned Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus, bought it from John Ringling North, bought an entire circus just to get Gunther and bring him to this country. The guy was phenomenal, and he really changed the whole animal training arena, so to speak, to feature the relationship with the animal and the person. And I credit him for that. Everybody did. You know, that was where the whip and the chair went that way. I never really did care for that much. I don't know about you guys. Clyde Beatty was a great trainer, no doubt about it. And that stuff is definitely staging. It's definitely drama. But I really much more enjoyed Gunther relating to his animals. He was on the red show. Mike and I were on the blue show. But we were very influenced by his style. And pretty soon, Mike Aria started talking about, I want a bear. I want a bear. Yeah, right, whatever. A bear? No. But this kind of relates to what Cindy was talking about yesterday, that her sister won that pony in a coloring contest. I love serendipity. Serendipity, wisdom by chance. This is it. I won a bear on a TV show. And I did a lot of PR as a clown. They used the heck out of me with this college girl, 5th woman clown for Ringling Brothers. So every town we went to, I did the talk shows, I did the newspaper stuff, and I was a natural because I loved talking about it. I was so blown away by the whole deal. I loved sharing that with people. So to pay me back, when the show played in Anaheim, the PR department put me on this TV show, daytime TV show called Girl in My Life. And I knew nothing about it. And the deal was, they said something that you did for people that was very nice. This was, of course, all kind of made up. And you get the prize of your dreams, what you'd always wanted. I didn't realize that PR people asked Mike Aria what I always wanted, right? Guess what he said? A bear cub. So when I saw that was not fair, because I wanted a golden retriever. And Mike knew that. He knew that. So I was on this show, and I was shocked. I was the school teacher. They didn't have a formal school teacher. Now Ringling Brothers has a formal school. They have a nursery. But back in that day, they didn't. All the little kids were just running around between shows, and I had come from an educational background, and that drove me nuts. And I was looking for cherry pie. In the circus, if you do an extra job and get extra money, they call it cherry pie. A lot of people roll cable because we tear down all our own stuff, load it up, take it to the next town, set it up, put on those costumes, and ta-da, right? So my cherry pie was I was the school teacher, and that's what Ringling used to get me on this show. When the curtain parted and this guy walked out with what was a black bear, I came to understand. When I saw the taping later, I stood there and I very obviously said, because immediately my life changed, and it did. Well, this was it. We play Anaheim in the summer, right? So I realized right then I'm going to have to leave the show. The deal was the next cub born at the Brookfield Zoo was going to be ours. I didn't know brown bear from black bear. I didn't want any part of it. Mike, of course, was ecstatic. But I didn't shut my mouth about a golden retriever, and that's not fair. Terrible positive reinforcement here for whining. Then, when we got to Portland, Oregon, I walked into the building one Sunday morning, and next to my clown trunk with a big yellow bow on her neck was Peaches the clown. Wow. So you see, if you really whine, you sometimes can get what you want. Mike, meantime, had moved to Circus World in Florida to work with lions. I finished the season, realized we had to get married. We started to look to borrow money because we needed a truck, we needed cages, we needed all this stuff, and no one would lend us money as Janice Aria and Mike Aria. So I had been with this guy since the 6th grade. I really didn't care if we ever got married or not. Honestly, I didn't. But this changed the deal. So I got married. And we moved to Circus World, Florida, in Haines City. It's no longer there, but it was in Haines City, Florida, right near the Center for Elephant Conservation. It's kind of strange how this stuff all winds around. And we waited for the arrival of this bear cub. And it was contingent on whether or not the mother would raise it. A lot of bear cubs are rejected, and frankly, that's how we peopled our act as time went on. We would get rejected, infants and raise them, hand raise them. And I mean, frankly, like I say, a lot of this stuff, guys, I'm not proud of. Winning a bear cub on a TV show today would be highly illegal, and I would be one of the first people out there saying, you cannot do this. But I'm giving you the true deal, how it came down, so I hope you see the evolution. So this next slide, I had to pull this out of my barn, and I hope it reads, but when the bear cub finally showed up, we immediately gave her to Peaches. And this is how they lived. They bonded so closely. And the thing that's touching to me, my barn was hit in the 3 hurricanes in 2004. And all my slides and photos were in the barn. And after the first hurricane took the roof off our barn, we went out there and replaced the roof. And guess what the 3rd hurricane did? Took the same roof right off the barn. So at any rate, this is a casualty of that. But this relationship was phenomenal. Just amazing. And I credit this dog. She also raised a tiger, but she was just phenomenal. But this was Chloe the bear. And here's Chloe the bear. And Chloe the bear, without a doubt, one of the best teachers I've ever had in my life. And why she didn't kill us, I don't know. She immediately attached to Mike. Bears are very, very unique creatures. You see people work different people's tigers, and Ken, my esteem for you is high anyway, but when you mention the thing about not going in a cage with someone else's tigers, he's spot on, and I'm sure you guys realize this. The relationship deal with these exotic animals is all of it, or a great, great part of it. You've got to have that, or you will get so severely hurt. They don't play. They mean business. She loved Mike, and that allowed me to get around her. But she really did train us. We did not have science behind us at this time. Fortunately, we're bringing that in now to circus people. It's new and they're resisting it, but they're starting to. They've been doing it for years. They just didn't put the terminology to it, really. But that it is essential. At any rate, this bear, one of the first things we taught her was, it turned out to be so essential, and this was actually targeting or stationing. And as our act progressed, the main thing we wanted them to do was go to that seat between each behavior, and those paws had to stay on the seat. And we built the seats so their feet couldn't touch the ground. We worked a leash act. We were not in an arena. And naturally, the worst fear was that they would split, that they'd boogie, right? And any sound, unexpected sound, can spook them, just like with horses and with some dogs. We would walk these bears later on past generators, and we'd be shaking. We'd think, oh my God, they're going to freak. And we'd get past that just fine. We'd be walking in an arena, and somebody would drop a styrofoam cup, and they'd all drop down on all fours. So it just, again, what a learning experience. But she was phenomenal. European brown bear of an amazing disposition, extreme intelligence. So we started with her teaching us at Circus World. All these animals live together in the backyard, and they do on the circus, but at Circus World they did too. They lived right by the elephants. At this time, the elephants were all on a picket line. We didn't have the advantage of the low tensor cattle wire that we use now to keep elephants in compatible groups off tethers. So Chloe knew Bonnie, the African elephant, very, very well. You can see Barbara Woodcock behind me. As Chloe jumped up, our routine was Chloe would jump up on the elephant, and then there's another elephant behind, and Barbara's leopard, for whom I was a groom, which is why I was allowed to stand so close, Barbara's leopard would jump up. It was like 1, 2. Very, very cool. But again, somebody used the word yesterday, mistaken identity. You're going to see that again and again in these slides, this juxtaposition of these ridiculously, what can I say? These animals would never be together in the wild, and this is one of the punches we take all the time from the activists. Honestly, I don't see what's wrong with it. I found it very enriching. They're not in the wild to start with, fundamentally, right? But this kind of stuff is impressive that it comes off. Not to the trainers, that the animals tolerate this and are enriched by this. So what this turned into was we were in the parade, and Chloe rode that elephant every day, and you can't really see it, but there's a cage of lions behind her. And to me, the fact that she would stay up there was phenomenal. This is when we started to learn that the best thing to do, now this sounds like common sense, but we didn't know it. Find stuff they like to do, right? Find stuff they like to do. She loved this. I don't know if you can see it, but she would get up on that bar and just rest her chin and she'd just take in the world as she was going along there. Very cool. The bicycle thing, we thought every bear act we had seen had a bicycle in it. So we traded in my cherished Schwinn 10-speed and bought a specially made bike that had sprockets so that the wheels went, you know, the pedals went when the wheels went. For 2 years, we pushed this bear around on that bike. And every time we'd stop, she'd do this like a kid. And finally one day, I mean, she got big in 2 years. And we're killing ourselves. Obviously, we were doing it way wrong. Oh, Ken's just sitting over there going, I know I could have fixed that for you. But you weren't there then, Ken. So we finally, may I say, shit-canned the bike, because that's what we did. We said, this isn't going to work. And we ended up doing tricks that were totally, nobody had done them before. And I'm not saying that like, oh, wow, weren't we great? They were so simple. She loved to swing. So we had a huge swing drop down from the rafters, and she would run to get to that swing. And then the swing would go way out over the audience. It was so simple. It wasn't even a trick, but it looked really pretty. The lights would dim. The music was When You Wish Upon a Star. And I can't tell you, I would cry so many times, particularly the last time we worked the act, because that bear would kick her feet. And so she taught us, I will do what I like to do, and I'm not going to ride a bike. Okay. You don't have to. Mike also, I worked with leopards at Circus World. Again, we were brand new, so I was a groom. My leopard gig was $80 a week, but I loved it. Mike worked with the lion act. This was a new lion act. This is a young male. His mane was just coming in. Kenneth, named after Kenneth Feld, who is now the owner of our company. But again, this act, look, he would get up there and put his head on Jewel New's neck and just relax. And they would take him through the park, through the Circus World Park, with Mike running along behind. Again, a testament to find what they like to do. People will love to see that. Don't you love to see happy animals? This was, again, I know it's common sense, but we had to learn it the hard way, the very hard way. So we had to breed peaches, and I know, again, I listened to this stuff yesterday thinking, oh boy, wait till I tell them my story. But I said, I'm going to be very honest with you. I wanted a puppy. Everyone in both of our families, Mike's family and my family, wanted one of Peach's puppies. So that's Peaches by the wheel. This is, again, our backyard. This is where I work between shows. You can see kind of parts of a leopard up there. The little red dog, by the way, was just a rescue dog that we also took in and put in the show. She wasn't crazy about being a puppy sitter, but that was just part of her destiny. But so here we have this lovely litter of puppies, all born in our tiny little trailer, by the way. We just stepped over them and marveled at them. We decided, after all of our family took theirs, there were like 6 left. We thought, well, we'll sell them. By the way, we did get their hips and eyes certified before. I want to just tell you that. It was so irresponsible. Yet another one. Put that on my tally card. The first person came to look at the puppies, and they picked one out. And Mike and I were just going, I don't know, I don't think so. We couldn't do it. We couldn't do it. So what are you going to do with 6 extra dogs? Dog act. I don't know what that girl's wearing on her head. I think she lost a bet. No. But again, not knowing what we were doing. We didn't want to do a conventional dog act with these guys because they were so big and pretty and they moved like horses. So we did a Liberty act. And it hadn't been done at this point. Now, interestingly enough, Trudy Strong, who's a dear friend of mine, somebody mentioned they had seen her act. She was doing a Liberty Dalmatian act at the same time. And when we left Ringling Brothers, we ended up working a lot of the same dates. And they did us in a display, the Goldens and the Dalmatians, and it was really neat. I thought it was really a neat display. But I'll tell you what, this is not the act for Golden Retrievers. Because thank you for asking that. I appreciate that. A Liberty act they're at liberty. There's no harness on them and no connection to the trainer. So they go around the ring kind of like this, and then they do a figure 8, and then they all come down abreast. Horses do that. But you have a couple of Golden Retrievers that get out there some days, and they're looking at the audience like. dressed up, and I'm standing there giving it all this, right? And I've been so humbled by these animals that I cherish the memories, but it wasn't easy to go through. So when it worked well, it was really pretty. When it didn't, it was really funny. So again, thank you for being a clown first. Who would have known? Who would have known? And the golden retriever and bear raising each other, basically, thing continued. We always put them together. Never had an incident. And I don't think it's luck. I think it's that, again, we lived with them. You have to understand that we would be out there at 2 in the morning. We would be out there at 6 in the morning. It was a 24-hour-a-day thing, which is a luxury to a lot of people, but it's just the way it is in the circus. Other people might find that a hardship. To me, it was, oh, I could not believe the luxury of that. But this is just another example. They played together and never had an incident. This is phenomenal, right? When we started to get this act together, we only had 2 little bears, and we petitioned Kenneth Feld to go on the road. Well, this is who got the job. No contest, right? I mean, at this time, a lot of Eastern European acts worked with Ringling Brothers, and they worked very embarrassingly cheaply, I think. So here was this young American act with really, just stumbling over ourselves trying to put this together. And we had asked for a lot of money because it's very, very expensive to keep this stuff on the road. So here's this young American act, very expensive. Here's this Eastern European act, very reasonable. Kenneth Feld was a smart man. He went with Ursula Bottcher, and that's Nikolai. And that, to me, if any of you were lucky enough to see that act, wow, unbelievable. This woman was an optometrist before she got the bug, right? Amazing. And you want to talk about relationship, and I think I'm amazed that as old as this slide is, you can see the look on her face. It's nothing short of adoration. And these guys are meat eaters. They're carnivores. She's on their menu. Our bears, it wasn't the case. We just had a big pocket full of grapes. But this was very, very impressive. And then this, I just wanted to show you this. This is an American version of the same thing. This is Jeanette Ricks. They're no longer performing either. And really, these were arena acts. You can kind of see the arena, fortunately, right, behind her. But there are a lot of these acts that are just no longer possible. There are no, to my knowledge, there are no more leash bear acts in this country. The 2 that I knew of that are still existing moved to an arena, again, because of the scrutiny and, one incident, which is rare, but it's possible, right? One incident, and you're not only out of business, you're ruined. So, I mean, ruined for whatever else you'd want to do in your life. So these are again, very historic photographs. So we did get the Aria Performing Bear Act together, and really it was a great thing that we got to leave Ringling and go on a bunch of small circuses, because we wouldn't have known it then. But it was the end of the small circuses. There are very, very few left, and we got to do it. We got to be on the Hunt Show, which is it was the oldest tent show in America. And they folded the year that we were with them. And we kept saying, they're not going to fold. I mean, there were times when there were more people in the show than in the seats. And we said, no, they're not going to fold. There was this old veteran performer on the show, on the Hunt Show. He did a slack wire act, which is it's low to the ground and it's very loose. But the acrobatics that he did on this slack wire were amazing. The guy was in his 70s, such a veteran. And when the show was getting weaker and weaker and weaker, and Mike and I kept saying, we're not going to fold, this show's not going to fold. Somebody said, you see Herbie Weber over there? He's in the phone booth. He's got stacks of quarters. Read the message. Because this is before cell phones. I know some of you guys don't even remember that, but a lot of you do, don't you? Don't you remember before cell phones? So that was and the show folded. But we also started, as the activist thing started to get progressively worse, we started booking ourselves in Mexico, Canada, Trinidad, Japan. We spent almost a year in Japan at one site, Fuji Safari Park. What an experience. What an experience to drive through downtown Tokyo and see Rocco. You really can't see him there. He's next to my brother. He's so black. He's a North American black bear. He's taller than all of us, and we're all kind of tall. He actually died only 5 years ago. He was almost 32 years old. But to drive through downtown Tokyo, we were behind, the cages were on the back of a transport truck, and Rocco was sitting there holding onto the bars and just taking it all in. Amazing. Those kind of experiences, what a bond. We had the dog act there too. It was amazing. So let me jump into the current people hate us mode. This was just this year at the Staples Center in LA. And because I do like to talk about this, I have ended up doing a lot of PR for Ringling, and this was probably the worst year we've had. I've been called, I mean, they get right in your face and they just call you such names. I was telling somebody earlier on one of the animal walks, a group of them just got next to me and followed me on the whole walk, and they just kept saying, Janice Aria, you should be ashamed. You should be ashamed, Janice Aria. And I'm thinking, I grew up in the 70s. There are things I'm ashamed of, but they don't know. What? It's astounding. And here in LA, I was standing at the end of behind the last person in line for tickets, and this is how close they are. And you can't see these signs, but it's, Ringling kills their elephants. This is how they train baby elephants. This is one I don't get. We rip the babies away from the mothers. There's no ripping in circus. That just doesn't happen. But, again, in Charlotte, you were there, you heard it. This is the stuff that they are saying over and over and over again. And I can't tell you guys this enough. Yes, we do have areas that we have to improve. We do. And I get very upset at our own people. There are videos out there now, and you may or may not have seen them. They're sure pushing them on people. I'm not thrilled about that. I can explain it, but I hate that I have to explain it again and again. But at any rate, this is how it has evolved. On the animal walks, which is a really magnificent thing, every time we play, the train pulls into the train yard. The stock cars are spotted. By the way, when this train, which carries all our performers as well, most of our performers, goes from town to town, the animals are right behind the engine. It's the smoothest ride on the train. The performers are all back there. If they get bounced around, who cares? I mean, I know people who have shown up with stitches on their head from Campbell's soup cans that flew out on the trip. None of that stuff happens with the animals, and that's as it should be. But again, a lot of people don't realize that that's how it is. But I've been on many animal walks where objects are thrown at us, dogs are released around the elephants. It's phenomenal because what our adversaries are going for is they want to rile up the elephants, so the handlers have to discipline them, pull them back in, and then they have it on film. And it's incredible. And how does that equate to good animal care? And what we've all come to learn is it doesn't matter. The issue is not about the quality of animal care. They don't care. Fundamentally, they are so against what we do that that's the issue that they're going to promote. They follow the greatest show on earth because we garner a great deal of publicity. Just like back, this slide, Hulk Hogan's wife was here. You can kind of see her with the very blonde hair over here. I really couldn't show her because she was half dressed. She had ripped jeans on. She's hanging out the top of her what do you call them? Wife beater. There's very skimpy T-shirts, and she's on a loudspeaker screaming, "This is unnatural. This is unnatural what they do with elephants." I'm very concerned about, and this is another issue, the celebrity following that PETA has picked up. I don't get it. But we are so victimized about this because we draw a lot of attention, and they get a lot of attention. We never see them at our farm in Florida because it's not open to the public, and nobody really knows it's there. We never see protesters there, always at our shows. And it's very, very difficult to keep our handlers of the mindset, as Cindy was saying yesterday with the Cowboys, very similar personalities. This is these guys' lives. And then there are these people defaming them, slandering them, and throwing things at them and trying to disrupt what they do. It's very hard to keep these guys from flipping out and going after these people. And that's part of my job, too. That's probably the roughest part of my job. But an animal walk is a wonderful thing. Back in the day, it used to be a parade, right? A featured parade. Now, in LA, we walk at 3 in the morning. It's ridiculous, and it's like Joe Frisco, who is our head elephant trainer on the Blue Show, which is in Denver right now, said this year, he said, they make us feel like criminals. They make us feel like criminals, which is phenomenal because this is ironic. This shot was taken in Norfolk, Virginia, and the animal walk goes right past the PETA headquarters. How about that? I know, it's very funny. But, it's a shame that and if this were snowing, if it were pouring rain, these guys are out there, regardless. And again, that's something that a lot of people don't understand. It's kind of hard to see this slide. I took this in '72 when I first joined. And you can't really see the picket line. My point here is I want to show you how much we've improved. Believe me, these elephants were well cared for. When an elephant is tethered, it's a very organized and specific procedure. It's one front leg, opposite back leg, unless our veterinarians have advised us that it should be for a specific reason, both on one side. But it's alternated every day. Even day of the month, it's right front, which immediately means opposite left back. They can turn 160, they can lay down, 180 rather, they can lay down, they can do everything but soil their food or fight. And they can't wander around. And when you have a lot of young elephants, which we very luckily do, those young elephants torment their moms. It's part of their job. You know, it's in their job description. They torment their moms like crazy. So I believe in tethering. Again, if you guys have any questions about this, ask me later. But it's a USDA-approved, time-tested husbandry methodology that we stand by. But it's one of the points that we take the most heat about. But this was back in the day, and I want to show you how we're improving because I'm so proud of this, and I'm so thrilled that luck has pulled me back with the people I started with 40 years ago and some of these animals that I was with almost 40 years ago. So this is one town. This is recent, okay? We have the cattle wire keeping these guys in, separated because they do fight. They're a herd animal, and that pecking order thing is, on a day-to-day basis, they're going to try out who's in charge. We have piles of sand delivered to every town. We usually have logs and browse. This was near the end. This was just before the teardown in Tampa, so you don't see that. I don't know if you can see, in the tent we have boards on the back. That's a tremendous improvement. Get them off the concrete. Although inevitably we stand there and we laugh. We go, look at them. They have the boards back there. Where do they congregate? At the CEC when it's 105 degrees. Are they under the shade structures? Rarely. So we give them all this stuff. It's up to them to choose. And I marvel at the choices that they make that we get criticized for. But anyway, that's what the housing situation on the road is like today. This is the Center for Elephant Conservation. This is an old shot. We've added 5 barns since then. This is where I'm based. This is in Central Florida, right near, when we were at Circus World, right near where we bought property and where we would winter every year. This is a phenomenal place. There's no place like it in the world. It's 200 acres, pristine, protected wetlands. Again, not open to the public. It's a working farm. Amazing place. The configuration is such that you see the main barn that's very long. That's where most of the females are housed, except for the birthing barn, which is new. It's not there in this photo. It's up by the hay barn, which you see at the very top right. What you see at the bottom are male barns. So just like in the wild, we separate the males from the females when they reach sexual maturity. They become very aggressive and they go into our system of protected contact. And that's the only sensible thing to do. There are rare males, and it has happened, who can continue to be in free contact after they reach puberty. But like I say, it's rare. So given we have a particularly successful birth rate, I have to tell you, it's 50-50 male-female. When that baby is born, and I've seen so many births now, it's a wonderful thing. And you look at it, and you see this big old thing hanging down, you go, oh my God, there's a new barn. Every time, you're thrilled for the successful birth, but it's like ka-ching. We have a male out on the blue unit now who is 5 years old, and Julie, our government relations manager, Julie McWright, is here with me today, so she'll field questions too if you need to. But we were there last night, and Julie will contest there was some shenanigans going on there where we said, uh-oh, puberty, here it comes. So they have so that's why you see mostly females on the unit, because they remain very tractable. I also want to say, we have 53 elephants. We only have 18 performing. Now, there used to be 18 on the show when I worked on the show. But we get also accused of the puppy mill deal. So not true. And the Feld family keeps every elephant from birth till death. But they're just like people. They don't all want to perform. And if they don't want to perform, they don't. They're all trained. I will say this, and I agree with Ken. They have to be trained for their upkeep, for the best possible care. So everybody gets the same training. And this is how, since it's so, when I say intensive, I only mean it's short sessions frequently, because you always want to end on a good note. So it's time, labor intensive for our handlers, but that's how they do it. That's the methodology. So by that constant contact, you can tell pretty soon who wants to perform, who remains attentive, who's patient, who's interested and stimulated rather than aggravated by the process. We have a lot of very young elephants at the CEC who never got the opportunity to go on the road because they just didn't have it. We have some that we have put out on the traveling unit a couple of months. You can tell they just didn't take to it. We have some old gals on the unit that we just kind of arbitrarily figured chronologically they should come home. We've brought them home, and again, you can tell, and this is 3 of them I've witnessed myself. They stop eating. They're lackluster. We put them back on the road. That's where they want to be. They do less in the show. We have a couple of elephants. If you really are watching the act and you watch an elephant act, you can see there are some that just go out there, find their spot, and they just stand there. But it works for them, and that works for us, because we want people to see happy animals. But this place also does boast a very, very successful breeding program. Oh, wait. Let me tell you this one first. I forgot the order I put these slides. We also started a training program. We never had We never had science behind the training. I told you how Mike and I started, and it was trial and error, and it's a shame, and we are so lucky that we didn't have, I mean, I was built like olive oil then, and I have to tell you, I really didn't have many scrapes. I was very lucky. But Kenneth Feld had wanted for years a training program. 6 years ago, we started planning it. 4 years ago, we put it into practice. So twice a year, we bring 6 interns to the CEC. It's a paid internship. They live with us for 3 months, and they learn to work around elephants free contact. The goal is that they will come on the unit and be part of our elephant care staff. And it's the opportunity that we've never had before to teach what we have only recently defined as the Ringling way of training. Standardizing elephant training in the circus, oh my gosh, what a challenge. We're not done, but we started it. And we've started to introduce training theory. And at first it was just, oh, pshaw, pshaw. But, again, I have to agree with Ken. Has to be done. You have to have the science behind what you do. What some of our older handlers who are the most arrogant about, I'm not going to listen to it, they don't realize they're doing it. They really are doing it. But they just haven't formalized their concepts in their mind. But that's okay. We're kind of going to grandfather them on. But the new guys are all going to be trained. And then we turn these guys over to those old arrogant guys, and it's kind of a nice transition. Interestingly enough, our interns are, little by little, in a very subtle way, informing our older, staid trainers. It's kind of a cool dynamic. But these guys spend a lot of time at the south end of an elephant, and they become very proficient in shovel use. Because, truthfully, that's where you start. And if you want to stay, if it means enough to you to stay, you have to prove your worth on that end. And again, a lot of these guys are there during the heat of the summer, and that is literally a trial by fire. We also have, this was begun maybe 10 years ago, I'm not sure exactly what, but a very, very expensive and concerted conservation effort. We have donated emergency veterinary vehicles to Sumatra, Thailand, and we have a really huge operation going on in Sri Lanka. So a few years ago, Dennis Schmidt, one of our chair of veterinary services, and Bruce Reed, my boss, who is the vice president of animal stewardship, and myself, went over to Sri Lanka, and we recruited 4 interns to come back and live with us for a year. Here's why. I thought that was really arrogant. I said, wait a minute. The Asian elephant is indigenous to Sri Lanka, and we're circus, and we're going to tell them how to work elephants? This was my naivete. I did not realize that, as you must read The Covenant of the Wild, that book, it's just such support. I didn't realize, and that book supported, the wild is not what people romanticize it to be. The horror is that last year alone, now this is an endangered species, 35,000 left on the earth. They're perilously close to extinction, and what a loss. In Sri Lanka, a country the size of West Virginia, an island the size of West Virginia, where the Asian elephant is a cultural and religious icon, they shot 250 of them last year. They can't export them because of the CITES Treaty. They don't know what to do. And frankly, what a horrible decision to have to make if you spent a year in this very poor country, planting and grooming your rice crop, and you knew that that was a year's food for your entire family, and in one night, one elephant ravages the whole thing. Horrible, horrible choice to have to make. We also noticed, I saw this myself at the Temple of the Tooth in Kandy, when their males come into must, which is a hormonal cycle that male elephants go through, and they secrete a lot of testosterone from their temporal glands. They become hugely aggressive, and that is the reason we cannot work maturing male elephants. When the males come into must in Sri Lanka at the temples, they chain them on all 4 legs and they cut off their diet because cutting down their nutrition tends to shorten the must cycle. So we built one protected contact cage for them, and we've had to send our people over there. They built it once. They put one male elephant in it. He destroyed it because they built it with Sri Lankan material. So it's a long process, but the point is, this is the iceberg. What you see when you go to the show, and I can't tell you how wonderful it is, but it's the tip of the iceberg. The bigger part of the iceberg is what goes on at the CEC and what goes on in the range countries. If we do not, all of us, and you guys by just being aware of this is a help, but for us, if our company and other people involved with the Asian elephant don't do something about conservation, we all lose out. But back to these guys. They stayed with us for a year. What an education to me. I didn't realize none of them had ever touched an elephant. Well, we sure took care of that. So in no time at all, we had them all. They were very, very afraid to use the guide. We always called it a bull hook. We can't call it that anymore. And truthfully, a guide is what it is. I just think it's semantics, but it's been so used against us, the term bull hook. Circus elephants have always been called bulls. And yes, it does have a hook on it and a point, okay? It's a thin fiberglass rod. In my time, I have seen these so refined. Ours were not this refined. But it is a tactile follow-up to the verbal cue. The optimum deal is that they respond to the verbal cue. But with an animal this size, with any animal, with dogs you have a leash, with horses you have reins, all we have is the guide. And I swear by it. It is one of my jobs also is to police proper use. You cannot misuse it. That's not allowed. No one was looking at us back in the day. I remember a time I saw Mike Aria bop an Asian elephant on the head and the thing ricocheted and knocked him out cold. Improper use. Great, it was a great lesson. But we try to train people now, don't go out there and just play with this thing. There are very specific cue points on the elephant and only those cue points. And there's a very specific way to use the guide. And we taught these guys this. They're each master's students. They're back in Sri Lanka now, and we're going over again soon to follow their progress. But it's strictly for conservation. They probably won't be handling elephants. But we wanted them to be able to supervise the use of the bullpens, and we're going to build more, so that when these males come into musk, and they're very into tuskers. They're very into the big ivory show. They don't use females like we do. We want those tuskers to be well cared for and not to be denied good care just because they're in musk. We also, another thing we started is we teach continuing education on both of the units, which is really fun. So we go to either town and teach, it's a series of 7 courses, animal natural history. No one ever taught us that, and I agree with Ken. Everybody should know, whether you're working a horse, a burro, an elephant, what is their life like in the wild? What do they do in the wild? How do they play? We teach animal husbandry, of course. This particular class, that's one of our veterinarians, Dr. Ellen Weidner, teaching medical management, teaching these guys what to look for on a daily basis. You know, if you're doing something all the time, it's kind of easy to just have inattentional blindness. And we're trying to teach these guys every little thing is significant. Please be aware of it. By the way, we have a staff of 3 full-time veterinarians and 2 consultative veterinarians who work for us at least a couple weeks a year. 4 of this whole group are board certified. And every town we play has an on-call vet. So our elephants get incredible veterinary care. And it's not only incredible veterinary care from the veterinarians, it's from our trained staff who can steer stuff to the veterinarians so that we can catch things before they become problematic. The breeding program. This is Juliet. She was born in '92. She was our first baby. Gary Jacobson, this guy, is now the manager of the Center for Elephant Conservation. His hair is not that color anymore, and there's very little of it left, but God bless him. This is, again, we have a long history. But the contact with these baby elephants is only possible because the mothers trust us. The mothers are so desensitized to people being there. They understand that we are part of their care. We are no threat to them. So when the babies are born, I could say really the only ripping away from the mother that happens, it's just like a human birth. The veterinarians immediately check the vital signs, check all this stuff. Mainly we're checking for herpes too. You check all the, inside the mouth. It's a terrible thing, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that later. But the main thing you want to do is plug this baby back to the food provider. So I find that so ironic that we're criticized for that. We get them on their feet, and you'll see in this photo, this is Barack, and he is such a success story. You see the soft cotton ropes around him. We hold them up until their feet are really under them, but you're constantly taking them back to the mom, constantly walking them back to the mom. This guy is hugely significant. He is our first AI birth. One of the biggest things we're doing in our research program is AI. We have tried so many times. I've been there for so many of the procedures. Dr. Dennis Schmidt is our chair of veterinary services, and he's one of the leading therapeutontologists in the world with AI. For some reason, it's very successful in African elephants, and it's very, very difficult to achieve in Asian elephants, and nobody knows why. But our elephants are providing such a rich field for them to study this in. And here's why we have to do it. Not only do we want to keep the species going, right, but most of our breedable females now are on the unit. We have the largest herd of male elephants in the Western Hemisphere. We have 11, and most of them are at the CEC. So it's one of those logistic things, right? What do? You can't take the female off the road. First of all, their cycle thing is so whacked. You can't tell when they're cycling except by monitoring their blood. How do you do that? They have to be trained very early on to allow blood draws. Their blood is drawn on the breedable females once a week, and we monitor their progesterone level. And when it hits that point, they also have this very complicated thing of a double LH peak. The first LH peak is just to pay attention, and then 19 to 21 days after that LH peak, they're fertile. How crazy is that? But there's still no way to bring the male to the female or get the female home. We also have a huge research agenda with cryopreservation of semen, because again, with the African elephants, the semen is transportable. I did this myself. We collect the semen at the CEC. I rushed it to the Meadowlands in New Jersey, and going through security at the Orlando airport with this thing of elephant semen. They didn't believe me. I had letters from the vet, and we couldn't expose it to light, so we all had to get under jackets, and I have such memories. I'm only going to tell you some of them, but oh my gosh, it was hysterical. I said to the guys, would I lie about that? Who could make that up? But I got to the Meadowlands 1:30 in the morning. They had everything set up. They had the female ready to AI, and they put the semen under the microscope, and it was all dead. And I can't tell you how many times that happens, but it didn't happen with him. We didn't know when he was born who his sire was. Very interesting. We found out by DNA testing, because we collected from several males, and they used all the semen we could get to, ensure birth. So here he is. Let me tell you more of his story. He's finally born. Oh my God, 22-month gestation. You're literally chewing your nails down to the quick, right? He wasn't breathing when he was born. Joe Frisco, who again is in Denver right now, was there, and Dennis Schmidt, they gave him CPR, and all of a sudden, the inside of that little 11-inch trunk, 11 inches his trunk was when he was born, the underside of his trunk and the inside of his feet just all of a sudden turned pink, and it was fantastic. He's up on his feet. Oh, huge. Then the next deal with this little bugger was he wouldn't nurse. So for 6 weeks, our crew slept in the barn. Every 2 hours, they'd do this procedure. It didn't take him long to have his feet under him, but they'd bottle feed him. They'd express from Bonnie, his mom, mix her milk with a formula, bottle feed him, and then walk him over to her, hoping that he would latch on. And thank God they persevered. If they had stopped, 5 weeks and a couple of days into it, they would have missed the opportunity, because one day, light bulb, he got it. And to this day, he nurses whenever he wants. And Bonnie got it too. She was a first-time mom. But again, because of the relationship that we have with these elephants, we were able to be right in there, manipulating her, plugging him in. So here he goes, now he's nursing, and cheers were heard around our world, our very little world. So the next thing is, does he want to be on the show? How do you know? Well, you try him out. So last year in Tampa, in January, we started this very slow procedure of desensitization. We put a cage at the end of the arena, and we walked he and Bonnie in there every day. I was just a tag along. I'm such a groupie at this stage of my life, but I don't care. I'm shameless. I love seeing this process. So they put Bonnie and Barack down there through this whole process of rehearsal, right? And they just observed. We just would stand there and talk and drink our coffee and observe. He was so at home. He was so cool. So let's try him in the show. So ultimately, they walked him through the portal. His mom was tailed up behind him, and they just walked him around once and out the portal, and he loved it. I mean, you can tell, again, and that sounds so presumptuous, but believe me, you can tell just because of, from his observation and knowing them. So he goes in the show. He opens in Tampa, goes to Orlando, doing great, knocking them dead. This was just, again, no guarantee. We get to Jacksonville, and Joe Frisco called the vets Thursday morning. The show called the vets Wednesday. The show was going to open that night. He said, something's wrong with Rocky. Oh, by the way, his name is Barack because he was born the night before the inauguration, so Barack Obama. What are you going to do, right? And it was herpes. We tested his blood that day. It was herpes. And herpes is a hideous, hideous disease. It kills elephants, usually acutely. Usually within 6 hours, they're dead. In the entire scientific world, there are 10 known survivors. Ironically, his sire is one of them, and he's another one. We brought him home, and people, you lose them all the time. It's a horrible story. Houston Zoo has lost I don't know how many, and fortunately, because they're right across the street from Baylor University, Baylor has now affiliated with them in a very focused and concerted herpes study, and we're contributing to that too. But he did better and better and better at home. They're treated with pamciclovir, the same as people. It's a hugely expensive drug with no shelf life. So it's not the kind of thing you can stock it up, because if you have a baby, the chances of them getting it are huge. 25% of calves born die of herpes. But we do donate it. If anybody has a herpes positive calf, we buy it and ship it to them immediately. And it's intensive care that allowed this calf to live. So at the end of the summer, which is not that long ago, he's back in the show. And I'm so proud to say that. And he's in the show in Denver. And the way they do, I know, it's amazing. He's such a miracle. Everybody in the cast comes out. It's hyperbole, it's Ringling. It's the greatest show on earth. So everybody comes out, the music is gut-wrenching, and every performer gets down on one knee and they style to him, and out he comes. And I guess I'm at that age, I don't know, I just cry every time I see it, and I can't see it enough. Because you watch that elephant and you can see he digs it. Again, it would be very obvious if he didn't. This is a body conditioning study that we did in affiliation with these two doctorates at the Fort Worth Zoo. Again, this would not be possible with an elephant that was not well trained. They're ultrasounding the fat on her back, and our elephants are all overweight. And it's a shame because they get a lot of exercise. And I tell you what, again, here's a hit we take about, they don't exercise. Are you kidding me? In the heat of the summer, it's the crew. We're all old on our crew. Like I say, we've all been together 40 years. These guys are all 50, 60. And here's the crew out there every day walking in this 98-degree heat. And everybody has some kind of limp or another by now. The elephants are going along just fine, but the crew looks like they just got back from the Civil War. I'm glad that's all behind closed doors. But again, we have to keep them in top shape. They're very athletic. They are in good shape, but our vets think they're a little overweight. It's a back and forth between our handlers and the vets. We also do a lot of outreach. This is an elephant brunch. And it's just the same thing they eat every day, but it's the aesthetic of it. We line it up and make it very dramatic. And again, it's a chance for the public to come and see. It's not during the show. They don't have to pay to come and see this. But they get to see the elephants up close. They get to smell the elephants. And you know what? I love Animal Planet. But nothing on Animal Planet is going to move anybody to the degree of caring that this does. And I don't know if you can see the looks on those kids' faces, but I get a lot back from that. I got a lot back from that when I was a clown, and I would be down there on the arena floor, one of me looking at sometimes 20,000 faces just beaming. So, this is another message I'd like to get out to the activists, that people do love it. You don't have to come if you don't want to, but I've seen it now for 38 years. It appeals to children of all ages. It actually does. But this is, like I said, and we bring a lot of camp groups, school groups in to see this. And you can also see the relationship between elephants in this instance. You can see elephants basically spit out the lettuce because they don't like that, then this one will grab it because she loves that, and this one will steal that one's apples. It's really cool. So if you're ever in a town, or if in your towns you see there's going to be an elephant brunch, you should go. It's really a cool thing to see. It's no part of the show, as I said, but we do this a lot. So I'm bringing you up to the present. This is our latest birth. This is April. She was born April 3rd. She's now 6 months old. This was when she was 2 months old, and that's her mom, Alana. I thought it was really funny. In California this summer, they put some new video out of Irvin, this precocious male that I just described to you, whose best friend, when they're weaned, by the way, which is a very slow process, and we wait for the females and the calves to let us know. And they do let you know. Not at the same time. I'm not going to say that. It's not like, okay, we decide. No. Sometimes the mother is done with it and the calf isn't. Sometimes the calf is done with it. It's very, very individual. But one of the new videos they put out that I had to address in many interviews, they said, this is an obvious sign of the calves being ripped away from the moms very early in their life, because look, they're not relating, because they put them back together and the bond has been broken. But the fact is, that was Irvin, who was her last calf. He's now 5 years old. And I said, actually, his mom is at the CEC with her new calf, which would be April, and that female is ignoring him because he's continually mounting her. So his days, which was what we saw last night, and I said to Julie, his days are numbered, but at least he's had the opportunity. He loves it. He is a good performer. He will come back when it's established that he has really fully reached sexual maturity. He'll come back to the CEC, and he'll spend his life there. He'll have a very, very rich, full life there. Okay. The top mounting elephant there is Zina. That's the elephant that I was on in the very first slide. my very first day in this whole world. And she went on to have a very brilliant career in the circus. And she's a funny-looking elephant. When you look at them a lot, you get to decide who's pretty and who isn't. Zina somewhat resembles a mosquito, but she's dear to me. She has a very sunken face. And here is Zina today. And can you imagine how thrilling it is for me, 38 years later, same elephant. In fact, when I look out my office window, the first elephant I see, the older retired elephants are right outside my window, and they are the ballast of our intern program. They are the professors, like Chloe the bear was for me, of these young kids. So Zina gets to go to the elephant spa every day, and what a wonderful thing, I believe. I also believe, several of you have said this, and it's my mantra, an intelligent animal, any animal, should have a purpose. If we remove the natural process of hunting, of staying safe, avoiding predators, if we remove that from their lives, why not supplant something else in there? And I believe the training, the bonding process, I believe all that stuff really enriches these animals' lives, and Zina is a perfect example of that.